On Sunday, it was announced, by surprise to most, that the Holy Father was going to be undergoing surgery, that he was in fact already in the hospital. Fortunately, the operation went well. They removed a fragment of the intestine that was full of diverticula. The Pope, according to the medical report, is recovering very favorably, and it is possible that he will soon be able to return to the Vatican. The news, I repeat, caught the vast majority by surprise. When I heard the news, I immediately began to pray for the Pope. The good fortune of living in Rome allowed me to go that very afternoon, on Sunday afternoon, shortly before the closing of St. Peter's Basilica, to go with some seminarians to pray for the Pope. There at the tomb of St. John Paul II, I prayed for his health, for the success of the surgery that was being carried out at that time, and of course for the Church. That is why it hurt me a lot, it surprised me, and it hurt me a lot that the networks, I do not say that they were filled, but they abounded with messages of hatred towards the Holy Father. It surprised me and it hurt me a lot. Hatred of the Pope on the part of Catholics who claim to defend the doctrine of Jesus Christ and tradition. I cannot understand it, because within the doctrine of Jesus Christ it's essential to love to the neighbor, and if they consider that the Pope is their enemy because of the way he governs the Church, within the doctrine of Jesus Christ is love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you and slander you. Hatred that I trust has been a minority, has been reflected in the networks these days, although I'm sure that a majority has prayed for the health of the Pope. That hatred discredits the one who has it, and also harms the cause that person claims to be defending. But hatred that goes as far as wishing the Pope ill on the part of a Catholic who calls himself a practicing Catholic, hatred is a symptom. We are before the symptom of a very serious illness. Just as the disease warns us with certain pains or certain things that happen in the body, and we must know how to discern the meaning of these warnings, these symptoms, in order to face this disease before it is too late. In the same way, I believe that this hatred of the Holy Father by some Catholics is a symptom that there is a very serious disease in the Church. And this disease is called division. A kingdom in civil war cannot stand, Jesus said. It collapses house after house. The hatred that has no justification in a Catholic is a symptom that the Church is deeply divided. It was Pope Benedict XVI who said a good number of years ago that a post-Christian society was being built. And little by little we're seeing what the creed consists of. The principles of faith of that post-Christian society, the post-Christian creed. A creed that will have to be professed if one wants to live in peace in that society, and if one doesn't want to be excluded or even persecuted. While the Church is divided, the European Parliament has approved a recommendation to all states that abortion be considered a human right, and therefore no one may oppose it, and that the limitation of conscience on the part of doctors be limited or even abolished. While the Church is divided, euthanasia laws are advancing, and the governments that are applying them intend to consider euthanasia-assisted suicide as another therapy, even in some cases without taking into account the last decision, the last will of the patient. While the Church is divided, the imposition of gender ideology is advancing, and even in more and more countries, it is being taught in schools to children. While the Church is divided, for example, in Spain, in 2020, there was only one Catholic wedding for every 10 weddings, and despite the fact that the number of weddings is small. While the Church is divided, in Spain, which is what I know best, in the year 2020, 150,000 inhabitants were lost, and of course, it was not only due to the pandemic. There are no children. Teenagers and young people do not want to have children. They lack faith. While the Church is divided, religious practice has collapsed, and not only because of the epidemic, it has collapsed to such an extent that there are many temples that can no longer be maintained and are being put up for sale everywhere. While the Church is divided, the gender ideology, the post-Christian creed, is advancing without opposition. It reminds me of the fable of the rabbits chased by the dogs, and that they stopped to discuss among themselves if the dogs were greyhounds or hounds. And while they were arguing, the dogs came and ate them. We are discussing while the real danger, which is the post-Christian creed and society, is advancing. But of course, unity, which I believe is the fundamental work of the Holy Pope Francis and his successor have to face, unity in the Church cannot be achieved if it is not around Christ, around His message, around tradition, as that message has been presented up to now, even if it has to be adapted but never betraying the previous teachings. Unity cannot be achieved if it is not around the truth, as the Lord asked for it in His beautiful discourse which St. John records in his Gospel at the end of the Last Supper. United in the truth, not united in a struggle that I take away, I put, I yield, you yield. United in truth, there cannot be unity if it is not around Christ and His message. But while we are divided, this post-Christian society with its overwhelming and dictatorial creed advances. Unless what is really happening is that those who are causing the division, demanding and asking for things that they know are not possible, such as the female priesthood, are actually seeking to pave the way for the imposition of that post-Christian creed. Let us pray for the Pope, for his health, for his full recovery. To all, let us put hatred away from our hearts. Let us pray for the Pope, and let us pray above all for the unity of the Church. Until next week, God willing.